Welcome and hello. This is a video tutorial on HEC ResSim, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about release function rules. This is the third video on release function rules. So in today's video, I'm specifically going to be talking about release rule modifiers. Go ahead and right-click Edit Reservoir Properties, and we have our familiar Reservoir Editor dialog box with our zones, operations set, and a couple rules already defined. I'm going to go ahead and define a few more rules in this video and talk about the release rule modifiers that are associated with release function rules. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to click on zone B. This is the zone I've identified as the guide curve. Add new rule, and I'm going to start with typing in a rule called zero weekend flow. It's going to release from the controlled outlet, and it is a release function. Yes, okay. What I have here is the new rule in the priority stack and under zone B. I'm going to go ahead and say it's a maximum and step and function of, I'll define it based on a date. And what I'm going to do here for January 1 is just put a huge number like a million or 10 million. Sure, doesn't matter. Because that is actually not going to come into effect. So what I want to do here is come to the bottom right corner and it says day of week multiplier edit. So I'll go ahead and click the checkbox or the edit button. And what I get is a dialog box that gives me Sunday through Monday with values of 1. Now 1 is a default value. If you multiply the release by 1, then there's no effect. It's just the same thing. But I'm going to change Sunday to 0 and Saturday to 0. Click OK. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent Saturday, it's going to set a new limit by multiplying 10 million by 0 on Saturday and Sunday. And if 0 is your new maximum, then your flow is 0. Why someone may want to do that, it doesn't matter. I'm just telling you how the model works. There could be reasons for doing something like that. All right. So the next rule I will create is going to be call it max hourly flow. Okay, and then that'll be coming from the controlled outlet. Again, it's a release function rule. I'll click OK. I will say it is a maximum step. And again, I'll define it as a date. And I'll give it a more realistic number here. I'll say 2000 CFS for the entire year. I'm not going to specify the exact dates. What I want to focus on is the release rule modifier here. I'm going to click on hour of day multiplier, click the checkbox. And now what we have is a dialog box which provides us 24 values. Let's put it right there. 24 values, one for each hour of the day. Again, as we saw with day of the week, the default value is 1, so multiplying the limit by 1 changes nothing. But if, for instance, we wanted to allow for higher flows at nighttime or early morning, what we could do is change these numbers or paste them in like I've done here. I changed some of the hours to 1.2. So what that looks like is instead of 2000 CFS, the maximum for those particular hours would be 2400, just an extra 20%. And then again, if it's a 1, then there's no change. The max limit for those hours of the day would remain 2000. So I'm going to click OK. And then, yeah, so that checkbox is there. We can apply that. All right. The next rule I want to add is going to affect an average. So we'll say max weekly average. And then that will be outlet, release function, OK. This release rule modifier on top, period average limit, allows for a lot of flexibility as well. You'll see instead of a rule applying to just one particular time period, what this average limit does for max or min or specified, it allows ResSim the flexibility to actually violate that particular number for certain time periods as long as the the daily average or the weekly average is satisfied. So our options here for the period is none, daily, or weekly. If I click daily, then you can't change the day of the week because it's for every day. If I choose weekly, then you get to decide which day of the week the period starts. Now, if you select daily, this is from midnight to midnight. It's not a sliding scale where it evaluates, 4 a.m. to 4 a.m., 5 a.m. to 5 a.m. each hour of the day. It doesn't do that. It's just midnight to midnight. And then same is true with the weekly. It's not a sliding scale. It's only from midnight of the day selected to midnight of that same day you selected 168 hours later. All right, let's go ahead and click daily release pattern. What we have here is a lot of numbers. It looks like what we saw before of 24 hours in the day, but that's if every day is the same. You can have each day different, and you can also select weekends versus weekdays. Let's go ahead and make each day different, and then up above we have the seasonal variation. So we've seen this before, but it's also built into this particular release rule modifier that's part of the period average limit. So we check that. We now have January 1 is the default only day, but we can add different dates. So I'm pasting from Excel. Okay. And now we have different options in the dropdown. So January 1 schedule may be different than March 1 and May 1. And of course, for each of these, you could change the pattern specifying it. So anyway, that is probably more flexibility than you would normally need, but I just wanted to point out that this average period average limit is a another tool you can use for release rule modification. The last one is rising and falling conditions. So I'm going to call this max rising inflow. As before, we'll use the controlled outlet. It's release function. And we check this checkbox down here for rising/falling condition. And what this does is whatever rule is specified is going to only invoke that rule or activate that rule if the conditions in this checkbox apply. And we may only want rules to apply during certain conditions, such as if there's a rising pool elevation over the past 3 hours with a tolerance of 5 feet. We click OK, and we check this checkbox, and then whatever rule we define here, which can be anything we've already talked about, it would only actually apply if this rising or falling condition exists. So we can make edits to it. We could say we could maybe 10 feet or maybe just 1 foot is the tolerance. We could change the parameter to be inflow. And if we do that, then the tolerance is actually in units of CFS, whereas before it was in units of feet for pool elevation. And then the duration of the average can also change for the number of hours that you specify in this text box. So that's it for this video. I just wanted to make one final video on release function rules and talk about these release rule modifiers and how you can add extra flexibility to your release rules.